It looks like the waiting room is cleared. I counted 3 board members logging in. If I missed anybody, please let me know.
I am scanning the list right now just to make sure. All right, well, let's just go ahead and get started in the interest of time. Knowing that we have several folks on the call today, it might be just nice if you don't mind putting your name and the organization that you're representing in the chat so we all know who you are with. Additionally, I think the TAC members could go ahead and announce themselves. So if you don't mind unmuting and just sharing who you are and what organization that you're with, I could go ahead and kick it off and say, hi everyone, I'm Mehet Kalra, I'm with Kentucky Youth Advocates, and I will pass it on to Dr. Smith.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I represent Kentucky Psychological Association. I'm a psychologist in Louisville.
Hi, I'm Donna Grigsby. I'm a pediatrician at UK, and I'm representing the Kentucky chapter of the AAP.
I don't see any other TAC members joining us. If there is a TAC member joining, please feel free to unmute yourself and share. There is an individual that has a cell phone number listed. If you don't mind putting in the chat who you are, if you have capability to do so, that would be great and helpful. All right, well, we don't have a quorum, it seems like, so we could skip that part and kind of dive into our old business. I know last month or last quarter when we got together, we talked a lot about well child checkups and also data around preventive visits and COVID visits, and heard from each of the MCOs on that. But something that stuck out to our TAC members when we met immediately afterwards was really around the conversation of sports physicals and well child checkups. What we truly want to know here today is we want clarification around what is occurring at well child checkups, but not in sports physicals. How are each of these reimbursed? Could they be bundled? And then additionally, on the school perspective, it seems that we are hearing that children who previously had COVID and they have to be seen by their pediatrician to complete a sports physical, and it can't be completed by urgent care or a back to school bash or any of those other opportunities. This was actually brought up by one of our TAC members. Unfortunately, Michael isn't here that I could see right now, and he could definitely shed some more light to that. But we wanted to hear from DMS today, knowing that that was a conversation that we had last meeting, and we hope that you could provide input. I know we provided this information to you all immediately after when we met. So you all have had the agenda for quite some time. So I'll just stop right there and just open it up to a DMS representative to talk us through.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Terrio, we can.
Wonderful. Hi. Well, I just wanted to give my 2 cents worth. I believe that the checkup and the sports physical can be done at the same time, and actually ideally should be done at the same time for mere convenience for the family. The thing that sets them apart, if you do separate them, is that the well child check goes into more depth with anticipatory guidance like wearing seatbelts, things like that. And you don't fill out that sports physical form. The sports physical, it has a bunch of questions on the sports physical form about, people that died before the age of 50 of a heart attack, if the child has any syncopal episodes. It just goes into kind of sports information like that. and the mom or dad fills out that form, and it kind of gives you a guided conversation to have with the family about those issues. And so that is the big difference. Usually you're not having the same type of a conversation if you're not doing a sports physical. But ideally the physical exam part is the same. It should be the same. And that's the difference. So if you shouldn't really bill for two separate encounter codes, you just bill for the checkup and do the both at the same time. If for some reason the child or the mom doesn't want to do it, then a lot of times they'll have to come back to get that done because it is a little bit different. That being said, if you want to head things off at the pass, a lot of pediatricians will go ahead, and because you've done the entire physical exam, if you go over the questionnaire on the phone with the mom, you know, if she comes back a month later and says, hey, I need this now, then you can provide that piece of paper because you've already done the physical part. Does that make sense?
It does. And I know the concern was, often at times the sports physical is the only time the child is seeing someone. And so just making sure that sports physical also is an opportunity to complete some of those well child checkups, knowing that a physician, a PA, or a nurse can complete those. And so I know that was a point of concern from our TAC members.
Oh yeah, it should all be, whenever the child comes in, if they're due for both of those things, they should get both of those things, in my opinion.
So on the question of the stories that we've heard from our TAC member, Michael Flynn, who represents the Friskies, around the sports physical can't be completed by urgent care or back to school bash or any of those clinics, but rather a pediatrician if the child had previously had COVID. Have you all heard of that? Is there any barriers that are causing this to happen? Because it seems to be a huge misconception, or at least a barrier into accessing.
Right, I would have to look that up. I personally have not heard that. I don't know if the AAP has said that, because of the cardiac problems that could arise from COVID. But I'd have to look it up.
Dr. Terrio, it's Jessica from Passport.
Hello.
So, hi. My understanding is that this is KHSAA recommendations based on KMA Committee on Sports Medicine's kind of belief about this. And it looks like the 2022-23 school year stuff has some confusion in the paperwork itself when you kind of delve in terms of who needs to complete it. So my guess is there maybe has been an update in one area and not an update in another. But that has nothing to do with you guys. That has nothing to do with DMS or MCO rules.
No,
that was really the decision by the State Athletic Association for the high schools and KMA.
that makes sense.
There is a message in the chat box. I don't know if you can see that.
Eva, do you mind? I know you're on. If you want to share your message.
Yeah, I was just sharing that we discovered that KHSAA, which is the KMA, directs them or gives them guidance on return to play things and physicals and so on. And they updated their guidance. We didn't see it until August, but it looks like the committee changed their guidance in June. And it now allows an MD, PA, APRN, or chiropractor to do that return to play protocol. So people could have that return to play done at the same time as their physicals. I think one of the bigger issues is that the sports physicals often happen outside of when students are scheduled for their annual physical exam. Like if they're playing fall sports, they have to have it right before fall sports starts, and it's good for a year. And so there's a lot of mismatch between sports physicals and annual preventive health exams. So I think that's how it's risen up, that they've become separate things.
Hmm.
But families don't get that. Once they've had that annual preventive health exam, if they can't pay out of pocket for a sports physical, then they're missing out on participation. So, and providers, at least anecdotally from here, providers won't fill out sports physical forms at the same time that they're doing their annual preventive health exam, or they'll charge families to do it because it's an extra set of paperwork that's not in their electronic health record.
They are good for a year, and maybe this is more of an educational thing for providers. Because again, the best time to do it is when the kids are there for their annual visit. And you know, just
Absolutely.
to educate everyone that, hey, they're here, it's good for a year. Yes, they play football and it's basketball season, but you can still do their physical. And if anything happens or comes up during, you know, in the in between time, they can come back if they need to.
That surprises me to hear that people are refusing to do the
Yeah.
school, to do the form at the same time. I mean, it takes a few
Mhm.
more minutes, but it's, I mean, it's a lot easier to do when they're there, so you can have
Yes.
them fill out the questions. You know, if we've done a recent physical on kids for their well child checks and the family gives us that form later, we can still, I mean, we still use the
Mhm.
information that we got from the checkup. We don't necessarily have them
Yeah.
come back in. Yeah,
That's what we do too. As long as we've done that complete physical, we just use that information.
That must just be an office by office policy. I mean, this isn't
Yes.
Medicaid related necessarily, but my daughter's pediatrician would never do them at her regular checkup. We had to be seen separately,
Very
the
interesting.
paperwork.
So is this something that DMS could put out as a notice to providers, and also partner with the AAP? Dr. Grisby, I don't know if that's like an opportunity if DMS. I don't know who just said something. But that was the question. What?
I can
Dr.
reach out to, I feel like there's a committee within the AAP that deals with, or that makes recommendations about sports medicine issues, but I can reach out and say there seems to be some concern that there's a difference from office to office and how these are handled. And is there, you know, AAP guidance about the way these are done? I've always felt like you did them at the same time.
Mhm.
I mean, Dr. Terry was shaking yes.
Yeah.
So I am stunned that that there are folks that are refusing to do them. So let me reach out to the AAP and see if we can get some better guidance about that.
Yeah, Dr. Gracie, the AAP does offer guidance on this, and Dr. Terrio almost said it word for word, which is ideally this should be done at the same time as the wild child check. And that there's so much overlap, it doesn't make sense not to. I guess what I wonder from a Medicaid perspective, if there might also need to be some member education. If you look at the form, it's really long,
Mhm.
but there's only 2.5 pages that need to be completed by the physician. And I wonder if there are some physicians who get frustrated when the whole form comes in blank and they feel like they have to take time to do more. So I guess that's just a wondering on my part.
It's a good wonder, except we fill out these forms all the time. You know, you just flip to your part and you do it.
Yeah.
And most, you know, pediatricians just fill it out all the time. So they should
Yeah.
be used to that form.
Well, and we know we can't answer those questions, right? So a lot of times we'll push back and say, hey, can you have mom fill out these or dad fill out these first 2 pages, and then we'll complete the form for them. Just because you don't want to just fill out the physical and not have the answer to the questions.
So I guess going back to my question, is there something on the provider level that we could do as an education just to ensure another reminder that this is what AAP provides as guidance, and this is an expectation for across the state. And is that something DMS could provide? And then obviously, as providers, just sharing, we within our networks could share it as well, and find a way to continue to increase that knowledge base too. But if there's guidance from DMS, that would be great, or at least
'Cause
some
it
sort of
almost,
notice.
yeah, it sounds like it's more than a Medicaid issue. If we do it through DMS, it's only gonna get half the kids in the state.
Right, but that's
through
at least a
AAP.
starting point.
Mhm.
And that's what our TAC members were talking about, was we need that regardless. That's just a level setting playing field. And then we could share the rest of the to other providers as well.
This is Shrika from Humana, but on top of the providers, we need to sometimes educate the members as well, because they might go in for their physical and then remember later, oh, I got to do the sports thing, not knowing that they could do them together. Because I'm a mother of children that do sports, and I always took the packet in, filled out to say, hey, I need you to do both of these at the same time, and they would. So it's the question of if the members know that they can do that as well.
Yeah.
Certainly, and I think that plays a part in it, but I think to that point, we're also, as you all know, members are confused by a lot of things. It's not an easy system to navigate, and that's what we're struggling with on in a general basis. So if providers could simplify that message, and then, they hear, once patients hear it and students hear enough, that could translate into change.
That's true. Also, do the doctors keep the forms in their office, or does the parents have to always get it from the schools before they can fill them out, or offline?
But we certainly keep them in stock.
Okay.
If there's a
And-
special form, there are I've run into where certain camps won't accept, they only will accept their forms. And that's a little challenging from time to time. But, and so we ask that families give us access to or get those forms, but the sports physical forms and the regular school physical forms, I feel like most physician offices keep those in stock.
Okay.
Yeah, and at Passport, we routinely try to remind caregivers in our member newsletters and things like that, especially when we do, every year I write an article about well-child checks. And we always put it in there and say, if you think your child's going to play sports, this is a great opportunity to ask for your sports physical to be completed.
Yep.
All right. Well, do I hear a commitment from DMS to at least share something, a notice out, and then we could work our channels to make sure that it's a way that this is pushed out? I mean, we know that kids are going to urgent care, not necessarily their providers. So we could certainly partner with other groups to share this message, but is that something that we could expect?
Yep,
from
that sounds
DMS?
great.
All right, thank you, Dr. Terrio. All right, I think we could just go ahead and move on to new business. And certainly when we talk about new business, when we first got together as a TAC, right after our last meeting, we were thinking immediately about those that are impacted by the floods in Eastern Kentucky. And we just wanted to hear what DMS is doing, and also each of the MCOs are doing to help families that are impacted. And so with that being said, Erin, I don't know if there is a way you would like to do this, if we want to just call each MCO one by one, or another way.
I had 2 MCOs let me know who was sharing, so if the other ones could drop their name in the chat, I would appreciate that. I believe we had Lauren and Jessica, so if one of those 2 want to start, they're already a co-host.
Hi, this is Lauren from Aetna. I'll go ahead and start. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen okay?
Can't see anything. Now
What
we can.
about- Okay, and it should be the PowerPoint, correct?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So good afternoon. My name is Lauren Payne. I am the Chief of Staff for Aetna Better Health Kentucky in support of our CEO, Paige Mankiewicz. So I'm new to this role and this is my first TAC. So it's very nice to meet you guys. I've been with the organization for 8 years, but just in this role for about 90 days now. So it's like I said, it's very nice to meet you guys. So the first thing I want to talk about and highlight is our initial rapid response to any natural disaster or unexpected event. So Aetna has a local SWAT team that consists of our senior leadership, in addition to representation from each of our internal departments. So obviously it's a team that you hope you never have to deploy, but always keep in the waiting should you need them. And unfortunately, we've relied on this team more than ideal over the last year between the Western Kentucky tornado and Eastern Kentucky flooding. So within 24 hours of any disaster or event, we assemble this team to assess member, provider, staff needs, ensuring our teams are accounted for, they're safe, and just ensure that there is a uniform communication plan that's consistent and aligned with local officials. And so I highlight this team intentionally because amidst what is typically chaos, we've made it a priority to be efficient in the critical first 24 to 48 hours of impact. So in highlighting assistance that Aetna has given to Eastern Kentucky, I want to talk about our financial and supply donations for the impacted regions. So we have given tens of thousands of dollars to World Central Kitchen to support meal delivery for those in impacted communities. We've also given several $1,000s in Visa gift cards to our local community-based organizations to disseminate amongst impacted staff, patients, etc. We've also given 450 backpacks to Jenkins Independent School District and are in the process right now of donating 2,000 additional backpacks to Letcher County Public Schools once they've confirmed the back to school date. In addition to that, we provided several pallets of water by request from Breathitt Detention and Jackson Group Homes. And then we also did a local drive where we collected many of the supply requests that we received. And we did a 6-county caravan drop off within the first week of the flooding. We also sponsored a 2-day remote access medical or RAM clinic. And that was held on August 27th through the 28th. And it started at 5 a.m. on both of those days. And so at those, there were several physician types represented from cardiologists to dentists. And so residents of Eastern Kentucky were encouraged to attend. And so from that, we were able to treat 208 patients, totaling over $100,000 in services provided to those patients. Additionally, within the first 24 to 48 hours, Aetna made an attempt to outreach via text and or phone, depending on the known complexity of the member needs of all the members impacted in those nearby regions, which totaled about 45,000 of our members. And because we have outreach coordinators and community health workers that reside in those areas, we've had boots on the ground every day since. We also reprioritized our outbound outreach via Pix Help, which is a 24/7 technology platform, and it reduces loneliness and social isolation by connecting members to outside of their traditional care setting. So the focus during this time was really put on members in those affected areas and just offering companion support. And so as you can see on this slide, 45% of our members who opted in throughout the month of August were from Eastern Kentucky counties affected by the flooding. Finally, I just want to wrap up by circling back to the RAM clinic. So with some real life examples of the impact it had on a few members of that community. So the first example is regarding a couple who self-identified as Aetna members at the event. They disclosed that they have been living out of their RV and lacked the basic necessities as a result of the flood. So one of our community health workers, as I mentioned earlier, who lives in that region, connected the couple with FEMA housing assistance and was able to supply them with some of their immediate basic needs, such as clothing, food, toiletries, etc., that they were really in dire need of. And then the second example is regarding a gentleman who attended the RAM clinic, the remote access medical clinic. A couple of our Aetna staff noticed this man was in distress. And so they approached him and quickly realized he was having a heart attack. And so with the cardiologist being on site, he was able to immediately receive aid and was airlifted to a hospital for treatment. So thankfully he lived, but had he not been at that medical clinic, he was told that he would not have been reached in time. And so looking ahead, we know that approximately 10 to 15% of communities, when able, leave after natural disasters. So it's a priority for Aetna to support the long-term rebuilding, starting with Letcher County Public Schools, libraries, and workforce development for both Eastern and Western Kentucky. We continually assess how to partner and support local small businesses, and we are committed to focusing on supplying basic needs such as food and shelter to those impacted by the flood. So that is what I have for you guys today. Any questions?
Thanks for presenting, Lauren. And I'm glad that that gentleman was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, even though the situation was very unfortunate. But I appreciate you sharing any update. Any TAC members have any questions? It doesn't sound like it. All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I was like, I'm not sure how to unshare. Let me see.
You should have a button that says stop sharing somewhere near where your share button was.
It's red usually at the top, maybe.
Ah, there we go. Thank you, guys.
Lauren, if you'd like to go next, or I'm sorry, not Lauren, Jessica.
Yep, let me share screen as well. Let me find the right screen to share. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Thank you. All right, I know I sent this to you guys about a week ago and I hate just reading slides. So I'm just gonna highlight a couple of things. I think you'll find that very much like every heart in the Commonwealth, Passport by Melina responded as quickly as we could too. Unfortunately, it feels like natural disasters are hitting the Commonwealth at a higher rate. And luckily, we also have a rapid response team that we can implement every time this happens. And we know that it'll sadly continue to happen. So what we do is we take a three-pronged approach because we need to make sure we're outreaching members, providers, and our staff that live in those communities. While we don't have a really super high membership in the area that was hit this time, we have a lot of providers that we work with there too, and we do have staff in the area as well. So the member lists are immediately polled as soon as a disaster hits, and members are texted within hours, and then we begin a phone triage attempt within those 24 hours as well, because we know that during this time texting is not always ideal, and we know we won't reach people by phone. And so our efforts often include trying to call hospitals and other places that we know we may be able to find members. We call hospitals where we know members may be currently inpatient to make sure they're okay, that they haven't discharged, and if they need to discharge, that they will actually have a home to go to, those kinds of things. Of great concern is always prescription loss. So we, of course, create a quick list of any member in the community that has a prescription filled so that we can outreach them and make sure that they know how they can get another 30-day supply. And we work with the pharmacies to alert them that they can go ahead and fill those. Every single member in the area that is active with care management gets outreach calls until we reach them. We do not stop until we reach the member or find somebody that can confirm that they're okay and that they don't need assistance. So that is an ongoing process. We call into the weekends as well, and approve overtime as needed to make sure that we can do that. For our providers, we call them as well and offer our support. Prior authorizations for all services were immediately suspended through the impacted area through August 31st, so that they knew they didn't have to worry about that. And we sent out an e-news communication letting them know of both resources internal to Passport as well as resources external to Passport to help them with their 24/7 efforts with the members. We knew that the providers were rolling up their sleeves and jumping into, but that they also had some significant impacts to their clinics. We did have Passport members in the area. Ryan personally called every one of those people immediately. Our plan president likes to do that. He did that with Western Kentucky as well. It tends to scare some staff when they get a call from their plan president, but he calls them personally right away. And we deploy emergency outreach procedures, and emergency PTO is always provided to that staff because we know that they need to focus on their family and their friends and themselves, and not worry about the time off that they're taking from work. We committed $100,000 to the Governor's Relief Fund and the Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky within hours of learning of the flooding, and we had a generous donor match that contribution almost immediately. Which was wonderful. We held donation drives. We provided car seats. There are just so many simple things that people are missing that it can be hard to track down as they start to rebuild their lives. A email blast was sent out to all of corporate Molina's staff within about a day of the event, notifying them what had happened in Kentucky and giving them information to the vetted donation sites, and encouraging them to give as able. And all of our Passport staff were encouraged to use their volunteer benefits. We get 24 hours of VTO every single year. That's paid time off to do volunteer work in the community. And so we were, of course, all encouraged to use that. And we provided staff with opportunities to plug in and do those things. We had staff spend hours with our members in person and others in the community, specifically around managing some of the legal aspects of losing important papers, et cetera, and how to fill out FEMA applications. And then similar to the other health plans, we partnered with the Kentucky Association of Health Plans to spearhead their remote area medical, their RAM clinic in Lick Creek. And you got to hear some of the results of that from Aetna just a moment ago. So that was kind of our deployment. We happily have reached all of our members that we needed to reach, and we will continue to support members and providers as needed until the repair and the rebuild continues. We are actually maintaining our one-stop help center in Hazard as a continued donation site as well. So that's a place where folks can come from the community and pick up goods. Any questions?
Does not seem like it. Thanks, Jessica.
You're welcome.
Amanda? You're on mute, Amanda.
All right, thank you. I'm sharing my screen. Let me just hit share. And then are you all able to see that?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So just like you heard from Aetna and Molina, we too have a disaster relief response team that mobilizes as quickly as we receive word that a disaster has happened somewhere inside the state. And we begin immediate outreach to our members as well too. We outreach to all of them via text and IVR calls, but we give added focus to those members who are enrolled in case management, physical health, behavioral health, and SDOH. Making individual phone calls to those members until we reach them to make sure that they have access to the supplies and the healthcare items, prescriptions that they need to keep themselves safe and healthy. We also have a team that starts immediate outreach to providers who are impacted in the area. And of course, you all know there were several providers in that area that have been impacted by that, and we work to help get them supplies We are currently in the process of working with several of the providers in Eastern Kentucky to deliver fentanyl test strips and Narcan to help restock those supplies of those providers and to get those supplies back out into the community as quickly as we can. Because we know that there is going to be an increase in substance use and overdoses due to the stress that these disasters have caused. We mobilize our outreach team. So we pull all of our outreach team from the field in their respective areas and we send them to the area that has the natural disaster. Within the first week of the flooding in Eastern Kentucky, we delivered over $5,000 in cleaning supplies to local shelters across the impacted counties. We had an associate boxed fan drive. We heard from several community partners that drying out the homes and the businesses. And if you'll remember at the time too, there was also a huge heat wave that came through the weekend after the flooding. So we got a big U-Haul, loaded up the van. You can see over there in the right-hand corner at the bottom, the National Guard was there and helped us get those fans off the truck to the Floyd County Sports Complex. I'm sorry, the Knott County Sports Complex that's in Eastern Kentucky. That's where those were delivered. And people were able to come and get those there. We also gave $50,000 for the Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky and an additional $50,000 to the governor's Eastern Kentucky Relief Fund. We were able to mobilize our $1 million grant to the American Red Cross to help get them put into the communities, the $250,000 grant to Direct Relief and a $100,000 grant to AmeriCares to help deliver additional medical supplies and assistance to the area. We worked with one of our community partners to do hot food. We delivered hot meals over that first weekend in partnership with the Disability Resource Center in Hazard. And we also are announcing a $100,000 endowment to the Eastern Kentucky University to help fund education for frontline workers who will agree to stay in Eastern Kentucky upon graduation to practice in 3 years post-graduation. We did the same in Western Kentucky as well too. We gave $100,000 to Western Kentucky University and Murray State. And this is in addition to the $100,000 we gave Eastern Kentucky again last year and Hazard Community Technical College as part of our commitment to increase access to healthcare in rural areas of the state. We continue to volunteer in the area. We also have an employee match program that the foundation will match. There are Dollar for Doer program for any donation that an associate makes, the foundation will match that 100%. And then we have also mobilized staff from a volunteer perspective, being able to take their volunteer time off. We created an internal site through our Teams platform, posting the different volunteer opportunities so that associates had a place to go to see where all of those volunteer opportunities were and continue to be, right? So it's important that we're not just there for the first week or the second week, but that we're continue to be there and to rebuild. We have about 10,000 members in Eastern Kentucky. So we are committed to making sure that we're there for the long haul as well to help rebuild and make sure that we're giving the resources not only to our members, but our community partners and our providers in the area as well too. Any questions?
Doesn't look like it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brent?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Brent Wilkerson with Humana. One second here. I'm going to share screen. Can someone just confirm they can hear me okay and that the screen is shared?
Yep, we could see it and hear you.
Perfect. Thank you all. And thanks for having all the MCOs to provide these updates. There are some commonalities across the presentation, certainly. The first thing I would do is just recognize that Humana serves 16,000 plus Medicaid members in the impacted region. And Additionally, and we've heard this in some of the other updates, Humana has a crisis response team, a dedicated team that helps nationally when national disasters occur. So we were able to move quickly and in less than 48 hours deployed member outreach to the members in the impacted region. That included text, email, IVR, web alerts. Additionally, we sub-segment our membership. We deploy established data analytics processes to understand among the membership in the region who could have significant needs exacerbated by the flooding that occurred in the region. And so through the data analytics, we were able to deploy our care managers, our population health resources to do individual direct contact with many members in the region. And all of that began within a week of the flooding. Just some numbers, made more than 3,000 calls to this subpopulation, targeting more than 1,700 members, reaching more than 300 of the members at a response rate of approaching 20%. Many of the members we did reach did indicate they were displaced from their homes. They indicated they were staying with family or friends. Other members that we reached, as we completed basic needs assessments and other assessments, we identified opportunities to help them, support them with resources related to food, medication, and DME. The last thing I would just point out on this slide, and I'll move to the second slide, policy updates in the region, just to acknowledge that the pharmacy lock-in program, as well as pre-authorization requirements, were put on hold in the region. While the pharmacy lock-in program remains on hold today, many of the pre-authorization requirements have resumed effective last week. And then the second slide, we'll focus on some of the monetary giving as well as supplies and support to the region. First, the Humana Foundation donated $500,000 to 3 organizations supporting the cleanup and rebuilding of Eastern Kentucky communities impacted by the flooding. Humana employees stepped up as well. We quickly coordinated a donation matching program among our employee base. Nearly 600 employees contributed to the identified organizations. Humana matched those contributions dollar for dollar. $100,000 was raised and deployed. Lastly, in shifting away from monetary giving and more to some of the supplies and other support we provided the region, we've talked about member engagement, but we have a provider engagement team working closely with providers in the region, a community engagement team working closely with community-based organizations in the region. And so as we're having those conversations, checking in on those folks, identifying opportunities to fill needs as we identify them. A number of providers in the region demonstrated significant loss in medical supplies. We were able to procure and deliver pallets sometimes of medical supplies to help those providers restock and continue to provide care throughout the communities they serve. Again, Humana stepped up in this area as well. The employees came together, coordinated donation drives within our Louisville and Lexington buildings. We advertised this and had a week-long event. At the end of the week, loaded all these supplies up and delivered them to the region, including food, personal hygiene products, and other supplies to deploy throughout the communities. Lastly, going back to some of the provider engagement and the way in which we stayed close to providers to assess how we could help them. In speaking with some of the providers, we actually identified some with pretty significant loss within their offices, and we're able to continue to have conversations with the provider and even have on-site visits to assess the need. Ultimately, we're able to identify an inventory of Humana assets, furniture, technology equipment, a number of things that would make their lives easier as they rebuild. And so we're possibly 2 weeks away, maybe sooner, delivering a significant amount of furniture and technology equipment to a few providers. We're going to load those onto the moving truck, we're going to deliver them, but we're also going to install everything and make sure that it works the way it should. And we're going to do all that at no cost to the providers we've been working with. I think, so in summary, and we've heard others mention the tornado outbreak in Western Kentucky, like that outbreak, we understand the rebuild takes a long time. And so we do look at these scenarios as long-term commitments, and we continue to be ready and working with the Eastern Kentucky region to identify new ways to help the rebuild and recovery. I'll pause there for any questions or comments.
Doesn't sound like anyone has any questions, so thank you.
Thank you all.
Dr. Rich, do you want to try to share your screen? And if you have issues, just send me over the presentation and I'll try to share for you.
Thank you so much. I will try to share my screen. We'll see what happens. I apologize. And I also did try to email it to you, but I can't promise that it went anywhere. I'm having some very technical issues right now. So is it the green? There it is. For some reason, I can only see half the screen. Let's see if anything comes up, and then let's hope it's the right thing.
Is your camera turned on, Dr. Rich?
It may or may not be. Do we need that?
I believe you need to have your camera on to be able to share.
Host disabled participant screen sharing.
It says you're a co-host. Let me check my email really quick.
I logged on my phone because my computer kept freezing up. So I could only chat from my phone. So I may be a co-host on my phone and not on my computer, but I think I'm on there twice.
Okay. Is there anyone from WellCare while I check my email for Dr. Rich's presentation?
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Okay, guys, give me just a second. Let me check my email.
We can see you now.
Well, hey, lucky you. Hey, that is me. I can even see me.
Okay. See if that works now. I made you a co-host where your face is showing.
Cool. Let's try that. Okay. Let's see what happens.
It says you're sharing, but we're just getting a dark screen.
None of my screens are dark.
There we go.
Oh, awesome. Wow. I apologize for making that so challenging. That was not my intent, but thanks for your patience, everyone. I do appreciate that. And yeah, I'll try to keep this very brief. But so UHC was able to our first commitment and our first task was to reach out to the complex care members and our chronic condition members that are in the zone affected by the flood, and we are able to do that and continuously work with those people that needed that care is so meaningful too. We stepped up our text and our email campaigns to make sure that we reached out to every member that we could and checked their condition to make sure that they were all right and all for support. from a provider engagement perspective and for our members to make sure that there was no interruption in the continuity of care, we suppressed the prior authorization there through the first weeks of the disaster, and we also allowed out-of-network utilization. So, in addition to that, we were able to donate $205,000 to the Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund and Kentucky Rural Collaborative, and then we had a lot of we had just a lot of staff that were motivated and wanted to give back, and so we were able to work with Mercy Chefs and Marino food trucks, and we had and provide meals to members. We provided meals, we provided and also shelter to folks, and worked other efforts like that. But it was fun. Also, I mean, it's just so rewarding for the team to be able to get out and do that, as well as and the food preparation and food service was a big was very much awarding to us as well. But so that highlights our efforts in Eastern Kentucky. We continue to make ourselves as available as we can to our members and to our providers. So, any questions?
Doesn't sound like it.
I'm gonna hope you can take back control easier than I gained it.
You'll have to stop sharing.
Oh
Shake it
boy,
down towards the bottom,
I'm sorry.
sometimes at the top, depending on how your computer lays out. Technology is not always our friend.
Yeah,
You have to roll your mouse.
Hold on.
Roll your
And,
mouse on your screen and it'll pop up somewhere. It'll say stop.
Yeah, it just popped up on a different screen than the Zoom was originally on, so that's why I couldn't find it. See if it's stopping.
Yep. You're
Thank
good.
you.
One last call. Do we have anyone from WellCare today? Okay, doesn't appear so.
All right. Erin, are you going to follow up to make sure that we get a WellCare presentation at least?
I will shoot them an email. They received the agenda. After I received the agendas from the TACs, I have been emailing them directly to the MCOs. So they should be aware that that has been requested. So I will follow up. It could be maybe someone was out of the office unexpectedly, but I will follow up.
Okay, thank you. And then all the other PowerPoints, we're going to get that via email. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sounds good, because I know we have several folks that aren't here. And additionally, there was a lot of information on each of those slides, so that would be great. Before we move forward from this conversation, I don't know if DMS wants to speak to share what they're doing, any guidance that they put out, any other information that has been sent out via email. Want to give you all of the opportunity, since that was also part of the question.
This is Justin Derringer with DMS. I don't really have anything right now. I've got a couple things I can send to you via email, but nothing to talk about right at this moment.
Okay, that was a request in our original ask. So please, next time, whoever's representing DMS to come prepared to provide us with information so we could close out the conversation and we're not bringing it on to the next meeting. All right, so moving forward, I know as a TAC, we certainly wanted to talk about how we want to move forward, whether that's virtually, hybrid, or in person. But given the fact that we only have 3 of us. I'm assuming we'd probably want to hold off on that new business until more folks are engaged, but I think we could still have a conversation around what is DMS's role in engaging those that haven't attended the TAC meeting.
I can give you a quick update about the virtual, hybrid, and in-person per some of the other TAC and MAC meetings. We have been leaving that up primarily to the TACs to make that decision. Part of the barriers that we're running into currently is a provided space that is large enough. Our public health facility has been under construction because they had pipes that bursts. So all of their conference rooms are currently not available. LRC is no longer allowing anyone to use their equipment. And so that has been a barrier as far as trying to, because as you know, it's an open meeting, so it has to be recorded to be put out there to the public. And without that recording, that takes all of their large rooms off the table as well. We have been looking into a few other avenues, especially for some of the larger TACs that do have more members. Technically, you guys have 10 members. And it's completely open to the public. So that's been a few barriers that we've run into that we've been trying to work through on DMS's side. I can tell you that for the 99% of the TACs have preferred to stay virtual because it makes it easier to attend. They don't have to drive to Frankfurt. They have found that they have had more public interest in not being in person. And so that's just a quick update on what's been going on with some of the other ones, but we have been leaving that up to the TACs. I do know, excuse me, our CHS building is looking to be renovated soon. When that will start, I'm not sure, but we've just been kind of leaving that up to each TAC to kind of discuss. So if you want to just kind of keep that on the agenda moving forward, I can keep you guys up to date on, the statuses of some of the rooms, because usually public health is the largest space, but with all the pipes bursting overhead and they've been kind of, they haven't been able to be used. And then LRC taking their equipment and not being allowed to be used has also been a large barrier. But I would just suggest leaving that on the meeting and we can keep, or on the agenda, excuse me, and we can keep that open discussion based on what you guys would like to do in the future. And I am currently, just going to throw this out there, I am currently working on the 2023 calendar for your meetings. And so as soon as I get all those dates locked down, I will send that out for you guys to look over.
That sounds good, Erin. And then also to that point, just hearing from what DMS's role in engaging those that haven't attended the TAC meetings, the members in particular. And I only ask that because our TAC is very confused on what is our role as TAC members, and then also what is DMS's role in engaging members. I know in the past, the individual that you replaced would reach out to TAC members. And so I don't know if that is an expectation, if that is something that you're willing to do, but certainly it's important to be all on the same page so we could take the necessary steps that we need to.
So from my understanding from Veronica, and she is currently out of the office this week, and I apologize, she's not here. The commissioner's also out for personal reasons this week. If the slot is vacant, I reach out to the association and work on them to get and nominate 3 nominations that get sent over to the governor's office. Excuse me, my sinuses are bothering me today. I don't mean to sniffle on you. And they will work on filling that. If you have people who have not been attending, from my understanding, the chair would need to write a letter for me to submit to the association for them to look for new members because they have inactive members. And I can send you a list. I did pull that list per your request of who has not consistently been there, and I can email that to you if you'd like, if you don't want me to go over it in the public meeting. So, we would kind of work together to get those members, I hate to say removed since they're not coming, but we would work to try to get more active members for your all's TAC.
That would be helpful, Erin, if you could give us that list
I will
prior.
send that over after the meeting with all the presentations. I will say I do have 2 emails from your all's TAC that I've never been able to get an email through. I think you said you've also had some of the same struggles. I had reached out to one of your members in a previous meeting about a presentation that you guys had wanted from her, and she told me that she went on the TAC and I had the wrong person. So I'm not sure if I'm just not sure on that one. So, but we can definitely work together to try to get you guys, some more active members.
Yeah, that would be much appreciated. I know whenever we met after our last meeting, something that we discussed was connecting on our individual secondary members. So, knowing that, there could be instances where we as primary TAC members can't attend every meeting, but we have backups or alternates. And so going ahead and starting that list and just working with each TAC member as well, that's something that I as a chair could certainly do, is just ask each member to provide an alternate. I know we've done that in the past, and so certainly moving forward, we could continue to do that. But I know one thing that I would also like your support, Aaron, since the process is, I guess, sending a letter to those individuals that haven't attended regularly, if there's already a sample letter that you all have that I could just go ahead and copy, if that needs to come from me.
There's not that I'm aware of, but instead of, you wouldn't write the letter to the committee member, you would write it to the association. And I'll be happy to also, when I send you the names, the association that they are supposed to be representing. And if you know anyone who is within those associations and want to reach out to them on the back end and say, hey, do you have any interest in possibly serving? They can reach out to me. And, that would definitely get that ball rolling. I know a lot of the other TACs know people that work with some of the other associations and have done that when they know that they have, terms expiring or are no longer interested in serving. So that's definitely something that we can work together. But as far as I know, there's not like a template letter to the associations. I don't think it would have to be anything very lengthy. Just, hey, your association appointed, X, Y, this person, and they've not been active, can we look, start looking for a more active member.
Okay. If you have one from a previous one that,
I
if someone
don't.
else sent that
There's
would be
not
great.
a template.
Okay,
that I'm
well,
aware
even
of.
if it's not a template, if another TAC has done something similar, if you could get that over, that would be.
They haven't.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I can
Well,
try to
I
search
just
some of the
think that if
records.
it's an
but
expectation for a chair, and especially this is a voluntary position, just providing the folks that are taking on that ownership of doing that a little bit more guidance would be helpful. But if you don't have anything, maybe that's something that we could just create or find a way to work together. But Dr. Grisby or Dr. Smith, do you have any additional thoughts?
It would be really helpful to get a list of what members we have, what members have not been active, and what members we need, or what positions we don't have a member for. Because I feel like these are the 3 folks I've seen recently, the 3 of us, and I don't recall. I mean, Michael was here previously, but I'm not sure where he is in the process. I know he was talking about retiring, so.
And the woman from the PTA comes, I can't think of her name.
Yeah, Sherry,
Yeah.
she sent me an email saying that she couldn't attend
She tends to be-
today. Yeah.
I agree, yeah.
But it would be nice to know, are there organizations that just don't have anybody assigned versus are there organizations where the person is just not active, or maybe we have an old name and there's someone else that needs to.
The list that I have shows that everyone there's no vacant positions. It just seems to be inactive. And to be honest, most of the other TACs don't seem to have this issue with inactive members.
Mahak, if you want, I'm happy to help you, try to sort, I think probably Courtney would be as well, but I'm happy to kind of help you look over this and reach out to organizations if there's an organization, if you want some help with that, because I know you're busy and it's a lot. If there are 10 organizations and we know 4 of the 10 are, have somebody here, that's 6 of 10 organizations we're going to have to reach out to. So
Yeah, that would be great. We could certainly connect after this meeting's over, knowing that we could also plan out our agenda for November.
Sure.
So we could just go ahead and hash that out. Because on the DMS's website, on the chat, or I should say the TAC's website, they have the organizations and who's listed. So we could at least go from that list.
Okay.
All right. So the only recommendation that I see moving us forward is the fact that we would like DMS to send some sort of letter out to providers around the sports, physical, and child checkup clarification, and just letting folks know if there is a child there, please provide a well child checkup. It's just a couple steps more. And so certainly that'll be our recommendation. We don't have a quorum, so we can't formally make that announcement, but it sounds like we do have a commitment from DMS to send something out. So we will be holding you all to that. Our next meeting is November 9th. There's really nothing to report to the MAC since we don't have any recommendations that we could present to them. So with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and say that we adjourn this meeting, and then if the TAC members could stay on, we could just hash out the next month or next quarter.
I am not going to be able to stay this time. I do have another meeting I was tentative for if this one ended early, so I do apologize.
Can you, Erin, can you make me co-host or host, or do we need to join another meeting?
You might have to, once I log off, I don't know if it will still allow the Zoom link to keep going, to be honest. I'm not sure about that.
We can jump in my Zoom room or yours, Hawk, whatever's easier.
Yeah, I'll just send an email out for us 3. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks. See you in a minute.